Stalker 2 was released in November of 2024 and is the fourth game in the Stalker franchise. Developed and published by GSC Game World, a Ukrainian studio, Stalker 2 had a rocky development due to the ongoing war with Russia, where they were forced to delay the game while part of the studio relocated. When Stalker 2 finally finished and was released, it came to Xbox as well as PC through Steam. It was also a day one release for GamePass, where you can get it right now on PC or Xbox console. I checked it out on the Xbox Series X. So, is Stalker 2 worth checking out? This review is going to answer that question.
As the head of the Scientific Institute for Research of the Chernobyl area, or CIRCA for short, I believe the wonders that we will bring to the world far outweigh the potential risks.
How big are these risks exactly?
The zone reveals a whole new world. We can stick with the old one, fearing change. But tell me, do you want our descendants to remember us as cowards?
Let's begin the review with the graphics and technicals of Stalker 2. I'm sorry to say, but Stalker 2 is rough. Even after a few patches, the game is riddled with bugs and technical issues. It crashed a few times during my 33-hour playthrough. The FPS dropped both frequently in and out of combat. My character got stuck on objects a lot, and several times I completely dropped through the floor, forcing a reload. The worst of the bugs, however, came in two forms. The first involves missions and quests. Quest markers bug out quite frequently, leaving you lost on where to go next, and several times you may be locked out of a quest entirely, forcing a reload in the hope that it fixes the problem. I had characters not appearing where they needed to be in order to interact with them to progress the storyline, or disappear completely and the quest marker not telling me which part of the map they had teleported to. Doors wouldn't open even though they were supposed to. I had items in my inventory that were quest related that bugged out and refused to leave even after turning the quest in, adding their weight to my carry limit. My advice with the story bugs is this: save very frequently and don't overwrite all your saves because you may need to go back a while to get it working again. Save scumming is a large part of this game, and it seems like it's almost encouraged. The second major bug has to do with combat and the AI. Stalker 2's combat against humans is like playing Call of Duty multiplayer, where all your opponents are using hacks to see through walls, get perfect aim, and triple the amount of health they should have. Every human enemy comes in two forms in Stalker 2. They're either hyper-vigilant soldiers that can instantly spot you from wherever they spawn and attack you with perfect accuracy from across the entire map, even with a shotgun, or spam grenades when you try to find cover and hide, or they're completely brain dead. There are zombies in this game, people who have had their minds wiped, but even they have better AI at times than some of the enemies you fight. Soldiers will just stand there, letting you shoot them in the head, or they won't spot you even if you aren't crouching and you're running around. It's frustrating as hell because it means the stealth is nearly completely useless. When enemies can spot you through walls and shoot you through them as well, you can't sneak by them at all. But there are times when you can walk past them without even being noticed because they are too bugged to see you. Those are the two most frustrating types of problems in Stalker 2. I can forgive floating enemies or T-posing enemies or any kind of graphical glitch if the gameplay stays good. But Stalker 2's AI bugs makes combat encounters a slog, especially when you combine it with enemy spawns that appear from nowhere right next to you, or the fact that enemies have ridiculous health pools that require a clip of ammo to kill them, even when you shoot them in the head. And carry weight and ammo scarcity has you scrounging for every bullet you can find. I don't want this review to turn into a rant, but Stalker 2 has some serious problems that are going to turn players off. I doubt that many players are going to beat this game. When I got to some of the endgame achievements, less than 2% of Xbox console players actually got them. There are multiple times in the game where I had to stop and put the controller down, and I was playing it on the normal difficulty. I'm not sure if the developers play tested the entire game on normal for the gameplay balance, because I was often in encounters that I had no idea how I was going to get through them. And there was no alternatives. I had to beat them to advance, so you'd use cheese methods. The last thing I'll say about the technical issues is this: The game feels more polished in the first half than it does in the second. If I look at the reviews on Steam or Metacritic, I can't help thinking that maybe people only played the first 5 or 10 hours and then gave the game a perfect score. Because in the back half of Stalker 2, the combat becomes a complete burden and the AI flaws really start to show.
And recuperate? My men died getting your asses out of Circa. I damn near died at the Dugas, and now you're telling me to rest?
I'm afraid there's nothing else I can do for you right now.
You've been promising me Class 5 sea protection for years!
Colonel, sir, no one expected the small Dugas to...
No one, huh? My men are still lying out there, and I can't even bury them!
At least you didn't share their fate.
What?
When Stalker 2 was announced, the developers had said that you didn't need to have played the first game or its expansions in order to understand what was going on. That isn't exactly true. I never played the first game, but I heard about it, so I had a vague idea of what to expect going into Stalker 2. I knew the game was set in the exclusion zone around Chernobyl, with mutants and strange happenings, but not much more than that. Let me tell you, if you didn't play the first game, you're probably going to be lost in this one. While it is true that you don't strictly need to know anything about the series to play Stalker 2, the game makes very little effort to inform you about what's going on. Stalker 2's story starts with your character Skiff waking up to his house on fire. There's a strange object that's glowing in there, and Skiff is pissed off that everything he owned is destroyed. So he takes the thing out and tries to find what happened to it. And more importantly, who is going to buy him a new house. It's a story that starts pretty strong. That sense of dread and mystery the first time Skiff enters the zone is just phenomenal. You can barely see where you're going in the dark, there's strange noises and unexplained sights that leaves you both wanting more and to retreat as far away from this place as possible. After being left for dead and betrayed, the rest of the game is basically a revenge story that reminded me very strongly of Fallout New Vegas. Skiff is hunting down whoever took the artifact from him, which is likely the only way he has to replace his destroyed belongings and house. Like I said before, the first part of the game is the best and most polished part, and that includes the story. It slowly becomes go to this place far across the map in search of a person or a thing and bring it back, or take it to the next location. The story is like a chain of fetch quests, each taking you deeper into the exclusion zone and into contact with locations and characters from the previous games. This is the point where the story becomes difficult to follow because it leans heavily on information established in past entries in the series. For a newcomer to the series like me, I had no idea who any of these people were or why they were doing the things that they were doing. There are data pads to pick up and conversations to have with NPCs that does flesh out some of the storyline to let you know what's happening, but it's not enough. There really needed to be a codex included, especially for some of the stranger terms and concepts that gets thrown around, like the sea consciousness and the noosphere. I'll be honest, right after I beat the game, I watched a few videos on YouTube about the previous games and an explanation of what happened in Stalker 2, and I still had a lot of questions. It doesn't help newcomers that Stalker 2 is deliberately vague on some of the things that are happening, with the intention of leaving the player questioning if what you just saw was real or hallucination. Combine that with story choices that give you different endings, and you will probably have a lot of the same problems with the story as I did. I think a major issue that I had with the storyline came from the game's length and the long treks required to reach the various destinations the quest had me traveling to. If combat and gameplay were more polished and less frustrating from bugs and bad AI, I think I would have liked it a lot more. But by the time the credits rolled, I was so frustrated by the last combat encounter, which is just a absolutely terribly balanced encounter, that the entire game left a bad taste in my mouth.
This is the dark side of the zone. But there is another, the shining side. It's here all around us, but we cannot see it. I wonder what's out there. Eternal spring, the Klondike of artifacts, a new home, or our hearts' desires. But most importantly, no ward.
Okay, the gameplay of Stalker 2 is actually pretty simple. It's a first-person shooter with survival elements like requiring sleep and food, your items degrade very quickly, leading your weapons to jam in a fight, and your armor to be less effective as it wears out. There are severe weight restrictions on your inventory. Basically how it works is you have as many item slots as you want, but you can't go over a certain weight limit without slowing your movement and eventually just stopping moving altogether. This points to another problem that Stalker 2 has. The gameplay makes scarcity a big problem. You always want food and healing supplies and ammo because these things are kind of rare and you always need them, but there are strict weight limits, so you can't take very many of those objects. That makes sense in a game where enemies die very quickly to just a few shots, but Stalker 2 requires unloading clips of ammo into enemies, both human and mutant, before they die. So you need hundreds, if not thousands of rounds. Then you take so much damage from enemies that they have 100% accuracy and damage sponge mutants that close the distance on you that you need a lot of health packs. There's a bleed mechanic which makes you rapidly lose health unless you heal it, so you also want a ton of bandages. Then, using health packs makes you hungry, so you need a lot of food because you're taking a lot of damage and you're using a lot of health packs. As you go through it, you run out of ammo a lot, so you're going to want a lot of different types of guns because ammo can be rare and expensive, so you need options to cycle through, especially since vendors are few and far apart. So you have a couple of guns in your inventory weighing you down. Match that with the story items, some which weigh a lot and you can't drop, so you have to carry them too. When it's all said and done, you'll be carrying everything you can find and you can't move. The systems in Stalker 2 just don't mesh very well. You can't have a first-person shooter that requires Call of Duty levels of ammo and no regen, requiring you to have health packs, and then make everything super scarce. I can't tell you how many times I ran out of ammo in this game right in the middle of a mission that I just couldn't leave. I eventually just walked really slow, overloaded, because I needed more guns and ammo to make it through the missions. This is a problem that a few games have. A game that has scarcity makes you want to pick up everything and hoard all your stuff because you don't know if you're going to need it or not. And Stalker 2 isn't any different, except that you're going to need all that stuff. You will need 20 health packs and 20 bandages and 1,000 rounds of ammo and 3 guns, because if you don't have that, there is no way in hell you're going to get through the later game missions without it. But you also can't have all that stuff because the weight limit is so strict that you are encouraged to drop everything extra. Especially when you have to travel across the map, you want to be light and fast. But if you are light and fast, once you do reach your destination, you won't be able to get through it because the enemies have perfect aim and take a dozen bullets each to kill. That's why I'm saying that Stalker 2, at this moment, is an incredibly frustrating game. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. But I have a feeling that a lot of people who praise Stalker 2 and review it very highly and are very critical of this review may not have gotten through the entire thing. Stalker 2 isn't a bad game, it's just an unfinished one. A lot of work went into it and I can see flashes of greatness there, but it is held back in a lot of areas, and I would encourage anyone looking to buy it to wait a long time, possibly even a year, before buying it. That's it for my review of Stalker 2. Thanks for watching, maybe leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm the Casual Console Gamer, and I'll see you on the next review where I play a VR title, Iron Rebellion.